The Unrelating podcasts are meant to be for education and entertainment. They don't constitute a service or advice. For personal struggles, please reach out to a medical or mental health professional.
The best part about this podcast to me, Michelle, getting letters and getting emails from folks.
I love the idea of getting a letter, like someone actually wrote a letter and put a stamp on it and sent it somewhere. I love that.
Yeah, we never give out our P.O. box, do we? Because we don't have one. But getting emails from folks with questions that are sincere.
That's one of my favorite parts too, because it means that someone was listening and felt motivation to reach out to us to say like, hey, maybe you can help me with this thing too. That sense of hope. And then also just knowing that someone's out there and we get a chance to maybe talk to them or talk about what they're struggling with.
Welcome to Unrelating with Kel and Michelle, and I'm one of your hosts, Kelly. With me is my co-host, Michelle, a licensed marriage and family therapist who's been providing individual and couples therapy for over a decade. Together, we'll explore how we engage in relationships, why we do what we do, and what causes people to unrelate. Backed by popular demand, it's time for another Ask Us Anything, where we've received listener emails and are excited to answer your questions. Are you ready, Michelle?
Yes, I've been looking forward to this.
This one comes from Anonymous. Hi, Kel and Michelle. When you've been single for a long time, how do you reacclimate to having another person around and to your time and independence being taken away?
That's tough, right? Because you get into routines in life. Even when you're not single, you get into routines where you kind of expect your time to be dedicated to a certain thing. And it might be a silly thing or a self-care thing or just something you're used to. And all of a sudden, you're dating someone new. You have to adjust your schedule. I get it.
Have you gotten this question in your practice?
I don't know if it was this specific question, but they always kind of a running theme is the idea of like, how do you kind of commingle your life with someone else's in a way that feels healthy to you, that you're not sacrificing too much, but that you're investing enough to actually make that relationship work. So yeah, that resonates with me, that theme.
Yeah, I think, from my standpoint, when you've been single and you've enjoyed being single and then you have someone in your life, you have to obviously compromise and be considerate of their thoughts and feelings and needs. I mean, but that's the reason why you got into a relationship in the first place. I would imagine you want to have that as part of your life. Otherwise, why do it? I mean, you could be single, you can make that choice, but I would assume this person did as well. I would want to know why I'm in the relationship in the first place. Hopefully it's love. Could be lust. I don't know.
Both quite powerful motivators.
A booty call.
Yeah.
Well, more than a booty call. It almost sounds like their independence being taken away.
Yeah, you're picking up on potentially some underlying kind of psyches there because we don't want to extrapolate. We don't know what this person meant, but I felt the same. Like, well, are you equating being in a relationship with not having your independence? And is that what's triggering you versus just like the logistics of like, oh, on Tuesdays I go play basketball. I don't want to give that up. But, the only day that person can meet is Tuesdays. And it's like, well, like you said, Kelly, you have to prioritize and decide, is it going to be important to me to make time for this relationship? It's really tough, too, when it's a new relationship because you may not have the answer to that yet. Like, is it worth it to me? Because they're new. You don't know them very well.
Would you advise somebody? I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Would you, what's the word I'm supposed to use?
Recommend, suggest.
Okay. Michelle, would you recommend that somebody have a conversation maybe early on in the relationship and saying that this is kind of what I'm looking for and this is the time I'm willing to give?
That's a tough one, right? Because imagine being the recipient of that conversation. Yeah. It would feel maybe a little off-putting to hear someone be like, this is my schedule, and if you fit into it, great. If you don't, bye-bye. But like an internal conversation, as we're always saying, like talk to yourself about these things to figure your bleep out before you involve the other person. To me, it goes back to what you already said, Kel, which is think about what you're willing to adjust in your life to have the new relationship.
Hmm.
And maybe you don't have to think like, is this particular person worth it? Because they're new, maybe you don't know. But is the idea of a relationship that could turn into something worth investing in, to the point where, like, okay, maybe I don't want to go out on a Friday night to meet this person, but maybe meeting this person and cultivating this relationship is actually more important than the thing I had planned to do that I'm used to doing on Friday nights.
I think Friday and Saturday is sort of given you're going to hang out with this person. Where it comes into kind of question is during the week when you're working, you come home from work, or maybe you're working from home, but you're tired. Maybe you just want to eat and go to bed or watch some Netflix. So,
Yeah.
that's where it gets a little questionable. Like, okay, because I remember dating and I remember like, okay, I remember dating. I sound so old. Um, but I do remember like you have those.
You called her on the rotary phone. You would ask her father's permission.
I do recall there being some downtime where you do have your alone time. You would have your weekends, which you would go big, and then during the week you have I'm assuming you're working, you're busy, and you just need to kind of chill. Maybe you meet on a one night a week for dinner. But that kind of was the sort of the pattern that I took when I was single and dating. It seemed to work out well. And then obviously you meet someone special and you want to commit to this person. So of course you want to you want to be around this person. So
Yeah. What's interesting, though, I think what has changed kind of socially in this era is, or maybe it's just living in LA, people have jobs that are all over the place. Maybe they are like part of the gig economy. Maybe they are like part of, restaurant economy. And so they work nights, and like, I'm seeing in my practice, at least, people who are having a hard time finding time to be together because their schedules don't overlap that much.
mhm.
Someone
Yeah.
with a day job and someone with a night, evening job. So that's a struggle I've definitely seen.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine how hard that would be.
Well, the other thing I want to mention is, like, it wouldn't hurt to talk about with the other person who's new to you, the kind of expectations around communication. Some people
Hmm.
prefer text, some people prefer calling. Some people can go 2 days without talking to someone and still feel connected. And other people are like, they didn't, text me back all day. What does that mean? And so I think it goes to this person's question of, making time and not being as independent when you're trying to create a new relationship, because you do kind of have to compromise a little in terms of when you communicate, how often you communicate, and for sure be clear about that.
And they are reacclimating, so it sounds like they're in that process of wrapping their heads around how they're going to balance time with this person versus time alone. They're still figuring it out. If they're willing to commit, I would imagine that reacclimation will become easier and easier, right?
Absolutely. And to be honest, like, if truly what you want is a booty call or a hookup, then yeah, don't worry about it. You don't have to have these conversations. But this person sounds like they're interested in a relationship that can become something. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe we don't overcomplicate it. We just say, if that's a goal of yours, then put more time and effort into that goal than maybe you feel in the moment you want to, because that will take you closer to your goal. And not
Mm-hmm.
doing that will take you further away from your goal.
Well, Anonymous, I hope we've answered your question. I know it's a good one. Second question. Hi, Cal and Michelle. What do you do when your partner puts everyone and everything before you? Wow. Okay. That's a good one.
It's also a big one. And when I'm working with couples, one of the biggest barriers to the health of the relationship is either one or both of the partners feeling uh, deprioritized or unappreciated, or both. Um, so this idea of someone not either not making time or not making emotional space for their partner. That's what I'm interpreting this question as.
Yeah, this seems like a really, really tough situation. If somebody, your partner, I don't know if this is a marriage or just a relationship, but they put everything and everyone before you. Why would you even be in this relationship then?
To me, the way, I don't, it might be the way you're saying the question, but it feels like this person's kind of at their wits' end. Everyone and everything it just feels like, okay, this is a resentment that has been building up. A lot of people are in relationships where they may feel that flares of that from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
So this person might be in a real point of frustration, but maybe that's not the way they are every day, all day. Um, but it is, at the end of the day, just a really shitty feeling to feel like you are being put last in your own partner's life. Uh, But I would say there's another theme I see with couples is that we do tend to shortchange our families, and it's not even like a conscious thing. Sometimes, like I've seen a pattern sometimes with some men who feel very strongly that they need to be providers. They focus very much on that piece, working hard, being at work, getting,
Mm-hmm.
taking care of business. And that's how they feel they're showing love to the family, where the partner that's at home may feel like, you're always at work, or your work comes first, or so the messaging they're getting isn't what the person's putting out. The way I would feel love is if you were home a little bit and spending time with me, or things like that. Sometimes people's intentions aren't aligned with their actions in that sense.
Yeah, that's definitely, I'm sure, an issue. You got to pay the bills, and you got to put food on the table, and you've got to pay your mortgage. So you've got to do these things, and something's got to give.
Yeah, so I would encourage this person to think about what it would look like for that person to prioritize them. What does that even mean? How would I know that I'm being prioritized? Would that be, more affection, more intimacy, more sex, more discussions, conversations, asking me how my day went? Like, if you know what it would look like to feel prioritized, you're gonna be able to have a more productive conversation with your partner about that. And instead of going in and being like, you never put me first, or you're always, putting everyone ahead of me. First of all, I've banned the words never and always from my own household, because that kind of dramatic language is just not productive for
Yeah.
conversations, full
Mm-hmm.
stop.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's going to be really important for this person first to better understand what the ask is, what their own ask is from their partner. And then when they present that, to make it really about, listen, this is how I've been feeling, and I'm looking for like a solution we can come up with together for this, versus like, you never do this, because that's like a shame/blame statement.
Yeah, good suggestion. I'm trying to think of a situation where I've actually felt this. Or I'm trying to relate to this question a little bit, where I felt like somebody was putting something before me, and clearly work is always going to be there. It's always going to be an issue for people, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of normal in a lot of ways, like you said.
Well, I had a couple where the one partner felt that the other was prioritizing friends over the
Mm-hmm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm. I can see
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, or family members. Like they were kind of helping take care of their family, and that kind of always took precedent over anything. If they had plans with their partner, if they had commitments with their partner, they would cancel them if a family member called and was like, "I need you."
I mean, if you have these situations where you have to help your family, I mean, you have no choice.
Yeah, and I think that can be part of, hopefully, an effective conversation between these two people is, what are the things that are actually coming ahead, and are there any opportunities for compromise, or maybe this person has poor boundaries with the other things that are taking precedent, and that could be very legitimate. Maybe this person needs to be able to say no to friends, or not be a workaholic. Or I'm just going off of like maybe extreme examples.
It sounds like they needed to meet with you, quite honestly, and
I
talk
would
about
love that.
this.
We talk about this. These ask us anythings drive me crazy in a good way, because I'm like, let me at them. I want to be in a room with these people so I can actually support.
Clearly, they need to have some more communication between the two of them, because this is not sustainable.
Because you can imagine how it feels to feel that, or
I
maybe you
am.
can't. Yeah,
I
exactly.
I am right
And
now.
that's such a lonely kind of sad and disappointed, and maybe even starting to brew up some bitterness. These are a lot of challenging feelings, and it's certainly not fun to feel them, but that loneliness factor to me is huge, and is going to affect the relationship if it hasn't already.
Okay, I don't know if we answered that question, but hopefully We gave them a little bit of advice. Sorry, I always say advice.
Yeah, ban that word from your household, Kelly. Gave them a little bit of support, gave them
Yeah.
a little bit of
Okay.
insight. Insight's a great word. We're always trying to do that on the show, right?
Yeah.
By the way, I like when when you say advice and then we have to find another word. It's just, there's something very endearing about that. And it's also nice for people to understand that we take seriously that this is not an advice show.
Oh, right on. I can keep it in there. Great question. Thank you, Anonymous. Last question. Hi, Kel and Michelle. This is a follow-up question to our last Ask Us Anything episode about infidelity. Okay.
Ooh.
Can you go into more depth about how to build back trust? I do recall we talked about infidelity in our last Ask Us Anything episode. This person would like us to expand on the trust issue, building back
Mm-hmm.
trust.
This is such an ideal situation to me that someone wants more information. I mean, that's all we want here is that to offer that to people. Hopefully I'm remembering that show correctly. I think we talked about the trust equation, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken, consistency over time
Yep.
equals. Okay, so I'll go into a little bit more detail about that, because what does that look like? When I say consistency, I mean consistently trustworthy behavior. So to build back trust, the person who broke the trust has to pretty much always. Oh, great. I banned that word and now I'm bringing it in. See, even I struggle with my own boundaries. So the person who's trying to build back trust needs to very consistently show that they are trustworthy again. And so that may be by kind of overly communicating. It may be by just by their actions, saying where they are, showing where they are, proving where they're, what they're doing. And that may
Mm-hmm.
feel like some kind of police state. A lot of people who are trying to build back trust feel resentful of this phase.
Mm-hmm.
But like we talked about in other shows, you really can't come back from infidelity if the person who did the trust breaking isn't willing to tolerate the phase of trust building.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good to kind of be policed or micromanaged or have to,
Yeah.
you know, but what the alternative is for that, the person who was betrayed, if you could put yourself in their shoes, is often just that loss of trust is just an awful feeling. And so a lot of times they doubt everything. They worry, they're anxious. If they don't hear from you or they don't know where you are, their brain is automatically going to go to the thing that you did
Mm-hmm.
breaking the trust. And so if you're really committed to earning back that trust, then it's important to show up more than you want to, more than maybe you think you need to. But if you don't, you're keeping the other person in that kind of hypervigilant, heightened state of fear that it's going to happen again. And that person isn't going to be able to feel trusting in that state because they're in survival mode. When they're
Yeah.
scared that you're going to do it again, it's kind of like their brain doesn't have the capacity to problem solve or the executive functioning that's needed to build the trust back.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you have to have a period of them feeling safe with you so that their brain can kind of reset and not be in survival and fear mode anymore. That period of safety builds on them. Now their brain is like, okay, now that I'm safe, I don't have to worry so much about surviving here. I can go back into the parts of my brain where I can communicate and be loving. And
There's no timeline on this, right? I mean, it could take a while, right?
yeah. And, I've worked with couples where maybe that person who was betrayed never fully gets back to 100%, but at least they are in that part of their brain where they're like, I feel fairly confident it's not going to happen again. Can I say I'm at a zero in terms of fear? No. But I think couples can exist in that environment of maybe not 100% confidence, but
Mm-hmm.
fairly confident,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that the person who did the betraying continues to maintain a level of trustworthiness. What happens, there's a concept called intermittent reinforcement, which is like if it happens every fifth time, or it happens at random times, like you're not going to be able to get a pattern out of it. And so again, if someone, goes 3 weeks with being fully trustworthy and then on the fourth week does something shady, it's almost like going back to zero, which
Yeah.
sucks.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
2 steps forward, 1 step back. Actually, 5 steps forward, 1 step back. I'm trying to do some role playing here where I'm thinking, okay, this was me. And let's just say I was the untrustworthy person. And let's say there was some infidelity. I was the person who instigated the infidelity, right?
Hmm.
I admitted it, or I was caught, one of the two. But I'm trying to build back trust with my partner. So what would I do, me personally, to try to do that? I'm just in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to double down and definitely put more effort moving forward for the rest of our lives, perhaps. But I'm definitely going to rewire my brain in many ways how I want to prove myself to my partner.
Yes. The only way I would adjust that is to not waste effort. So to really find out from your partner what they need to see.
Okay.
Because I could be putting my effort in one area and being like, look at me, look at me. And they're like, that doesn't help me. If you
Hmm.
were over here in this other area doing this, that would help me. So you really want to know what's going to make maximum impact on that trust building instead
Hmm.
of just kind of flailing around and trying everything.
So from a granular level or from micro level, we could talk a lot of macro, but from a micro level, I say to my partner, hey, I'm gonna meet the boys at the bar. We're gonna do like a quiz night at the bar. It's a Wednesday night. I might be out late. That's the only details I give. That may or may not create some stress for my partner because they're thinking, well, what's he doing? Who's he with? Who's he meeting? How much is he drinking? I could see there being problems with that, especially if I'm trying to, again, build back trust. So do I go? Do I even go? Or do I go and hey, better idea. Maybe I invite my partner, but that's a
Mm.
different question. But
Yeah, I mean, those are all things that, I don't want I hate to call the person the betrayer, but for, simplicity, I don't want the betrayer to like wrap themselves into pretzels trying to figure it all out on their own. The trust building is a team effort. And so having that conversation, like, I want to go out to do quiz night with my boys. Well, how would that feel for you? And if so, like, what would you need from me to feel okay during the night? What does that look like? Do I text you, when I'm
yeah.
leaving? Do I send you a picture of who I'm with? Like whatever it takes.
Hmm.
And then you have the conversation about what feels reasonable. If the person who felt betrayed is saying like, don't go, are you going to feel like that's not fair or
Right.
like too much to ask of you? And so that
Mm-hmm.
also has to be communicated. The other thing I would say is, as the betrayer, to put some time and potentially some therapy into what went on for you that created that breach of trust. Because if that isn't addressed, it could very likely rear its head again down the
Hmm.
road. And now you've
Hmm.
put in all this time to rebuild trust, but then maybe something triggers you that you maybe aren't aware of about yourself, and it happens again.
That makes a lot of sense.
Someone could be listening to this and be like, I want more, go into even more depth, and we can totally do that. So feel free to reach out. And we can't give every topic that someone asks us about like the full attention it deserves, because these are short shows. So obviously we didn't cover every possible scenario of this question,
Hmm.
but if you're hearing this and wanting more, just reach out to us.
Yeah, I think we answered their question. We did go a little bit more in depth about that because I think it is an important question. I'm glad they sent it. So thank you, emailer, whoever you are.
Yes. And if I can say, we're talking about infidelity between a couple, but trust building can also need to happen between friends or family members who broke your trust. And so same kind of concepts apply in terms of what we talked about.
Hmm. Trust is, I think, the number one attribute or part of a relationship. It's a foundation.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, couples come to mind when I think of trust building, but I also work with a lot of teens. That's my other area of passion. So that's a huge one too, is rebuilding trust when a teen has kind of broken a rule or, stepped over a line. I work with a lot of teens and caregivers who are in a trust rebuilding phase. And so, again, what we talked about could apply there too.
Are you telling me a teen would break your trust? No.
One of my favorite things about working with teens is their like wholesale expectation that they can, have all the freedom they want without really the cognitive, understanding that there's going to have to be some boundaries around that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so endearing to me. It's just kind of where they're at in their stage of development, but still, it's interesting how teens are like, what's the big deal?
We were all there once, just
Yep.
not in these current times.
Oh, yeah. High stakes.
Well, yeah, with social media and everything.
Do not get me started. You just said my trigger words.
I know. I do it on purpose.
I know.
I think the current Gen Z generation is the first generation to be raised fully digital, meaning they're the first generation.
And it shows people.
Well,
Sorry.
and they've had cell phones since they were alive.
Yeah.
And it shows exactly. This generation is getting older and they're joining the workforce. Certainly, there's positives and negatives to the way they've been brought up and how that's affecting them moving forward.
It fully changed the trajectory of society and of people's relationships. It's really fascinating. But I'm always stuck on the fact that, like, at least to me, there's usually two types of parents. There's like the ones who don't believe the research and science of how detrimental it is. And, I don't think any amount of data is going to change their mind. And then the other category is parents who like believe it, but don't know how to stop it. Like the idea of either, trying to take that away or limit it just feels so overwhelming or undoable that like you don't even know where to start. And that's tough. And then a tiny, tiny sliver of parents who are like, intervene early, who are like, before you're even in middle school, I got this in the bag. I know what to do. And I'm very hopeful for that set of parents to help the rest along.
Well, we appreciate the email questions. Please keep them coming. Just email us any relationship question you may have, and we'd be happy to answer them. We also strongly encourage you to come on the podcast where we can actually have a really great conversation about any issue you may have.
Yeah, obviously, if you're a listener of the show, you know that we're not trying to be provocative or hurt you in any way. So like these questions that you're sending us, you could easily come on and just have a conversation about it, get a little support.
I'm getting support by talking to you, Michelle.
I am too. You were my therapist earlier today. So.
All right. Thank you, Michelle.
All right. Take care.
If you're struggling with family, friends, or coworkers, in a bad relationship and wondering what to do, or you want a relationship and to set yourself up for success, then we want to talk to you. So make your appointment on Unrelating. To be a guest, ask a question, or recommend a topic, drop us an email at theunrelatingpodcast@gmail.com. And be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook.